Session number 3, that is Srishti and Sevan. I think Sevan is following the lunch, but now it is mindful consumption. And I have with me Professor S.S. Chakrabarti, and it's very difficult to, introduce him. But still, I have tried my best to put his accomplishment in 4 or 5 bullet points. He's the chairman emeritus CES, which he started on his own. And that was the first engineering company, I suppose. He is the chairman of 2nd Vivekanand Bridge Tollway Company Private Limited, chairman Bengal Faith Health Care Private Limited. He has supervised numerous disciplines of infrastructure and environment both in India and abroad. And he is an expert in capital-intensive engineering projects, planning and design of road connectivity. Professor Chakrabarti, we are very sorry that we have delayed this session too much. But what I expect from you is that let's close this session by 3:30. There are a lot of contributions. So whatever major questions you have in your mind, you can please deliberate upon that. We have a big write-up which is already ready. And there were several contributions by 8 to 10 people. Yes, please. We will not share their contribution. Let us have a brainstorming. By 3:30, we'll close this. Yeah.
So this next slide, I think those topics.
Topics here. Sorry.
Topics.
Yes.
Now. Friends, after lunch it's dosing time, but we have got a big dossier here, about 9-10 points, I don't know, and we have got limited time of 55 minutes for the interaction, and it's not any lecture session. And if you read it, circular economy solution, then man-made resources, sustainable supply chain management, smart energy system, swarm drone for supply chain and smart mobility, then sustainable agriculture and food production, then water, transport also including primarily focusing on decarbonization of energy, electric mobility mission, and carbon capture utilization or carbon capture storage. Then decarbonated buildings and smart cities, green hydrogen mission. And this is sustainable agri and agricultural, it's a common really from the agricultural product. So friends, you could well see that it's a entire plethora probably covers 2047 technological vision. But I will give a couple of minutes only what is my idea, try to summarize it. And then there is quite a few papers. From the papers, if anybody wants to give it 2-3 minutes, I know it's very difficult. But that is how it could be structured, because our organizer, Professor Dianching, with whom I'm so grateful, he has given time of 55 minutes. Now, coming back, this circular economy solution, it is a very pet subject of mine as well as Dr. Dianching. Because we feel that the first most important point that has to be taken in order to take our economy to whatever we call it, $1 trillion or whatever it is by 2040, 2047 or 2070 even, we will have to have a circular economy. By circular economy, what emphasis I have given it, that no wastage. And we don't use that word waste we use that word man-made resources. My friend Dr. Dien Singh, a few months back, he wrote a book that a true circular economy is zero waste. There is nothing known as waste. And I will add to it that there are two types of industrial ingredients, disposable and durable. Industrial cycle to be sustainable, then the energy that powers it needs to be entirely renewable. And customers are no longer consumers but users. Now, each and every material is resource, provided you know how to make it and how to utilize it, to convert it into a resource. Now, in this vein, I would say that we'll have to take many-sided approach. It is not only the technological intervention, but also, as we are discussing in the morning, that it is the outlook needs to be totally different. What I mean is that besides that we will make minimum waste, we will have to find it out how to convert the waste, and then on top of it, we will have to have nature-based solution. With nature-based solution, again coming this question of the circular economy, that what we take from the nature, it should be what it could produce or what it could give. You should not take beyond certain range the capacity which is regenerates continuously with the nature. And whatever maximize, if we can do it, the nature-based, with the nature, all our system, all our technology could be integrated. And then with that comes the technology. First we as an engineer or as a scientist or as an environmentalist, we must take first that everything we are getting it from nature, and eventually we can only give it back to the nature. And that is what circular economy. And in the process, what we'll have all this technology. We can have ICT, we can have IoT, and all other methods. I will give you only one small example, that we engineers are very enthusiastic to make a solid, robust structure so that it would withstand all the probabilities and all the structural, all the wind forces, all the waves, and etc. Now, we have, if we do a sea coast, it does not apply to Mumbai, but in West Bengal, in Sundarban, where we have got mangrove forest. It is the second mangrove forest in the world, which is a extremely useful and extremely important mangrove. And there, in order to protect these shores of the inhabitants, we built a solid wall in certain places. What happened? First of all, whatever solid wall we made, it did withstand the rigors of the sea. And then we stopped the sea water is coming to an extent into that mangrove forest, where a minimum amount of salinity is required. And on top of it, the inhabitants there, the fisheries, the agriculturists, there certain amount of saline water is required, certain amount, but not too much. So this protection of this by doing from our structural engineering point of view was not the solution. And what I said that there we tried to introduce a nature-based solution that in which I'm not going into the engineering, it's too complicated. And then we put a series of mangrove forest at the toe of the embankment. Then when it comes to the question of implementation, the state chief minister said, if putting the mangrove is the solution, I'll put 1 crore of mangrove trees. So it will be solved. Then he said, how can we put 1 crore of mangrove trees within this, and what should be the time period? That's why in the morning I was always emphasizing that I believe firmly that anything what you conceive, particularly in today's our brainstorming or deliberation, we are talking 2047. That means what it is achievable in 2047. And in order to achieve something in 2047, what are the steps, interim steps, in which one of the projects we have worked it out, we're not going into that details, 2027, 2030, 2035, 2040, and 2047. Then that is also extended according to the Prime Minister Modi's statement that it should be, if we want to come to net zero, then it should be 2070. So coming back to the circular economy, the 20s, if we want to get, we will not get anything before 2070 net zero. That means we have accepted that we cannot do total decarbonization before 2070. And that if we progress according to his vision, if we follow this step in a very graduated manner and get all the finances and do all the states together, and the central government gives the full support to each of these schemes without any political intervention, then only we will be able to achieve net zero of certain thing, net zero of whatever we can definitely be able to achieve if we do it. And net zero of carbon, greenhouse gas emission, we'll be able to do it by 2070. But net zero waste, we can certainly do it much earlier. We can do it possibly if we all can get again that if we have got the basic education and etc., if we can do the segregation of all the so-called man-made waste in a proper manner, if we can collect it and then we can put it in the required bucket and then can transfer that waste into energy, then we will be able to make net zero. So that's why I feel that the circular economy and net zero waste, water and carbon should be one of the guiding principles of Vision 2047. But I'm afraid, this I want to make it very boldly, that all our technical institutions, academic institutions, or even the ministry, Department of Science and Technology, if they are not in sync with this philosophy that we will do it, circular economy, we will do net zero waste by, say, 2040, then it would not happen. A project was taken on industrial byproducts. To convert the industrial byproducts, this entire iron bed, this red mud that comes out of it, and then that could be converted into pellets, and the pellets could be converted into source of power. And that here from IIT Bombay, a considerable amount of work has been done. But then, for some reason or other, which I cannot go and disclose, it has been stopped. And that is how where our progress is getting deviated. And that is what I asked Chairman and Mr. Srivastava, that if we want to make really serious on 2047, then we will have to bring everything within a time frame. The required funding should be made available, come what it may, without having any political boundaries. In absence of that, we won't be able to achieve much.
Shall we go point-wise, Professor?
No, I will, point-wise, I felt, that's why
Okay, it's fine.
I brought that circular
That's okay,
economy,
fine.
I'll make it circular. So
So
that,
shall we take it point-wise or you will be?
no, I will just, and then I will come to the question of the transport. And I feel, again, transport is being at the core of my heart. That's why I would like to take transport, because transport, what we in the conventional sense, we are making it transport. But when we are using the transport, it's merely not only conversion into a electric vehicle or it's a hybrid vehicle, or whether we should have the rail fully electric or not, whether we will make the entire gamut of fleet, we will make it green energy or not. Besides that, transport, one thing is that what would be our habit, perception. Because what we have observed, that whether we will have a pooled car on demand basis, whether we can use instead of bus and electric train, whether we should have an metro rail or whether we should have an electrolyte, all this coming into the transport era. But on top of it, until and unless we make our habit change, if I have got a car and to purchase a bottle of milk, I will use that car. But if I am forced to travel by any public transport, then I will go to the office every day by public transport. That means there comes the question of the public perception. Whether we will go for a pooled car, whether we will go for a metro train, or whether we will go by bus or by personalized travel. With that, our question of the total carbon demand is coming. Now, everywhere this carbon demand and the pollution, capturing of the carbon is coming into the picture. If we want to reduce the carbon demand, which I am just going to tell you that it is a must. Otherwise, if we make it fully electric vehicle, every commuter, even then we will not be able to solve the problem. Because we have got a large number of industries, cement, steel, these two are the major, then chemicals and then the refineries. They are producing enormous amount of greenhouse gas emission. How much you can capture it? Can you capture it? It's very difficult to capture. Still, even if you capture, then you will have to store it, or you will have to store it in a manner that it will not come out again. So you can store it below the ocean, or you can store it and then make it in such a manner that it could be utilized. That is what we call it, carbon capture and utilization. You inject it with high pressure into the aggregates. Then those aggregates can be used in the building material. Now coming back again to the building, that is also producing from our habit. Digital, I am not going into this, I am going at random, it's becoming. So this carbon capture and emission, this technology is still in a research stage. But some of the industries are claiming that we have got in Tamil Nadu a plant in which we are carbon capturing, utilizing it, shipping it and selling it abroad, which is wrong. He is making only a pious announcement, but he is nowhere near to the marketing of his carbon product. So therefore, nothing is getting materialized. In that way, we will not be able to achieve that 2047. Whatever we say, we will do it. We must have the finance, and if it is in the private sector, it must have the backing of the marketing and its profitability. So, coming back in this context, I must submit that the carbon capture and its utilization and storage should be a very, very important research objective which India can do it very easily in contract order. We will not have to depend on Heidelberg, we will not have to depend on anybody else. And we should be able to do it. If we can achieve it, then we will be as we are going to make soon a breakthrough in green hydrogen. If we can bring green hydrogen, then we will be also able to reduce the carbon emission, because then we will be able to produce that hydrogen to contribute to the reactor. So, coming back, I would say that I started with transport. I'm trying to say transport. I'm a Delhi. I suffer from the carbon capture and emission, vehicle transmission, construction pollution, and real vehicle. And our doctors there in Delhi say that anybody who is beyond 60 or 70 years of age, he can be subjected to pollution that might 2.5 anytime, any day, or air quality index is going somewhere around 450, 455. So therefore, but where will you go? So one of the things is that you control this dust, control this pollution. You can't control the environment.
So actually there were many contributions in your session.
Yeah, I will.
And there was, I think, more than 10, 15 people who have, no, you have already summed up everything. I think now we can take the feedback from people.
Yes. So I'll first go to the
Your session has maximum number of contributions,
so
more than 20.
Water, contributed water.
We have spoken about the gist of what all these 20 slides, 15 slides are talked about.
This,
Yes.
Mr. Shandip Srivastava.
Yeah, he's there.
Now, Mr. Srivastava, I will say that this concept on water security is an excellent one. But what I would suggest that please don't go into the details of the science, which has been very nicely brought it out. Just go into the security. And there only what I will say that with my little bit of research, what I have done, the water crisis in India is not solvable until or unless we go something bigger. That's my point. Please.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon to everyone. Basically, whatever I have not
slides,
gone to the
but I
science
don't
part,
want to make slides.
but whatever I have tried to
Yeah,
capture
I hope
here
I-
is the problem of water security, and this must be taken care in the days to come, and maybe by 27 it should happen. Because see, there are three sides. The water, how it is being utilized. Basically, one is the surface water, one is the groundwater, and the third, if you go to the hills, this is whatever the water available is the spring water. Now, what is actually happening is all the three developments or the study or the research, they are independent to each other. I will just give you a few examples. Like one is, there is a study and there is a presentation of Gujarat. The groundwater is depleting. But in Gujarat, the focus has shifted to the surface water and the water balance has improved. Second example, we were working on the water budget in Sikkim. What we found is the development part, especially the airport has come and the road construction is going on without understanding the aquifer part. And as a result, the spring water has started drying up. So what I'm trying to say here is there has to be a integrated study where you take into water cycle, entire thing you take into account, and the surface water, groundwater, everything should be taken into consideration. Not only that, the line departments which are maybe damaging your water sources, like there was one presentation, like once you are going up a basement study, you are depleting or rather decreasing the groundwater area. All these things are because every department is working independently.
Yeah, but sir, that's okay.
Yeah.
So we have to have an integrated approach.
Integrated.
But the question is that even while you do the integrated approach, your consumption of the water level is such, and the population is in the morning we have 142 crores, and then there is a Prime Minister's statement that we should increase our per capita consumption, and the quality of the drinking water should be somewhere near to the international standard. Then with that, we don't have that much of water in any way. Now, here, also another thing what we wanted to do it, today, this month, it has been declared to be the year of millets. Who is eating millets?
Sir,
And until and unless we again change this style and force it, the government only makes an announcement that this is the year of millets. And no restaurant, no household yet has gone to the habit of using bajra for its product or to develop. Now we see in the advertisement in the paper that they are going to make some sort of a product which is out of bajra. Until the rice-eating people are so much dominating that rice and wheat, without that we cannot think of.
Okay.
And there what it is coming, that we have found it out that by 2027, the water demand, the current level of water demand is being maintained. We won't be able to do it until and unless we make this drinking water to be absolutely different, which is a dual pipeline, which in inter alia means that 2% of the water consumption is only for our drinking. That 2% we will be able to serve, but that for which we should have a separate line, for which we don't have the...
Sir, again...
So here we will stop, because until again if we go for, we have gone into the interlinking of river basin, is there, and interlinking of river basin, you know how many, it started in 2002, and then in 2002, the High Court said that it should be, Supreme Court said that it should be completed by 2012. And in 2012, the Supreme Court demanded and said that it should be done by 2016. And after that, the Supreme Court is quiet. Now what is happening, Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to Ahmedabad with a budgetary commission of 59 crores. Now, Kane and Bedouin belongs to the same state group, political group. Whenever there is a two political group is there, upper basin river cannot be transferred to the lower basin. So, water crisis of India is not solved.
Sir, just to answer your first...
Yeah.
Something about CCUS.
I'm going to talk about it. Yeah, I will concentrate myself on net zero, green hydrogen, decarbonization, and what should be done in a steel industry. Okay, so first and foremost, if you are going to have EVs, you require batteries. We don't have lithium. So battery recycle, every battery has a second life. When the battery capacity goes to 80%, there is a life in that. So you have to use it for some other purpose. China has 9% growth rate in that battery recycle industry. USA has about 6%. So this is one aspect. Another is green hydrogen from water splitting. That is going to be the savior of the world. Because if you take carbon dioxide to chemicals and materials, whether it is methanol, dimethyl ether, gas or hydrocarbons, that is one. Then steel industry. We will produce 120 million tons of steel this year, and 1 ton of steel produces 2.38 tons of carbon dioxide. So you have to use green hydrogen there to decarbonize. This is number 2. I know, I'm coming to that. I'm working in that area, so I know what it is. So what I'm trying to tell you that hydrogen, this USA government, Canadian government, they have set a goal called 111. What is the meaning of that? 1 kg hydrogen in $1 in 1 decade. I have been saying this since 2015. I'm telling you that. We can produce hydrogen in less than $1, and ONGC is supporting us. And then in fact, we are given an expression of interest just 3 days back. How many industries are interested? So, yeah.
1 minute. This $1 is all acceptable. When ONGC is talking about this green energy,
Yeah, very good question. I'm not ONGC man. I'm an academician.
green energy.
Yeah.
So kindly expedite it at $1.
Yeah.
If we can buy, we have started, Prime Minister wants us to export the hydrogen instead of feeding on.
Yeah, that is what. So I will tell you.
If you can produce by 2030 portable hydrogen to an extent in which your research is capable of transporting the hydrogen, we should be very happy.
Yeah, okay.
Because hydrogen is one element which will give you all solutions.
Okay,
But we are also thinking of alternate solution. Of the battery, when you said alternate to lithium battery is also.
Yeah, but yeah. No, I just want to add one thing. See, one of the things is, substitute for LPG by doing dimethyl ether. And we don't have a policy on dimethyl ether. And we can produce dimethyl ether from carbon dioxide.
Let us.
Yeah, so I think when you are talking about all these issues which are projected in your slide here, smart energy systems, sustainable supplies, mindful utilization, here we have to take systems approach because all these issues are intertwined. Mindful utilization, we should see they are linked to rising aspirations of people. I think growing up in North India, I found that there was a time when one ceiling fan was considered enough in the entire house to beat the summer breeze. But now then aspiration changed, there are ceiling fans in every room, and now we see air conditioners in every room. When I entered Anushakti Nagar way back in 1970, where I stayed most of the time, there were no air conditioners in the residential areas. Now even the entry-level officers have air conditioners in their house. So aspirations are evolving, and to talk of mindful utilization and rising aspirations, there will be a balance, and I'm keen to hear what the students are going to say tomorrow. They are the ones towards whom we have to do that.
Yeah.
Second issue which we have to be careful as we talk of technology set targets is the rebound effect, a concept which economists use. When a particular item becomes cheaper, people use more of it. You see number of LED lights have become cheaper. See how many lights you have in this room. In any house these days, interior decorator comes to you and he will put some 10 LEDs, where earlier there used to be one tube light. Yes, LEDs are cheaper, they use less electricity, but the rebound effect is now coming into play. We are using so much of LEDs in every room. Are we really gaining from it? And this is a well-established concept in economics. The reluctance of developed countries to give up privileges and pay for past mistakes. This is well known to all of you. And developed countries are continuing to evolve metrics and institutions to save their interest to ensure that their privileged status continues. I will not go into this detail, but this is something which I have been seeing it all around in my career, particularly during the negotiations for the nuclear deal with US and other
But a
countries.
second for change, why shouldn't they do it? Why couldn't we do it?
Because they are ahead of us.
No,
We have to
But are we doing it sufficiently to protect our
The world
interests?
is living with the order which was set up after Second World War in 1945. India being such a large country is still not member of the Security Council. You want me to now talk about it further? 91 we started these economic reforms. We continued to grow. 98 we had nuclear weapons test. It took 98 to 2005, 7 years to have a nuclear deal which allowed us to access uranium from international market. Subsequently, of the 4 international regimes, we could become member of 3, that is MTCR, Australia Group and Wassenaar Arrangement. We are struggling to become members of nuclear suppliers group and we are still not. We are still having the status of a kind of associate member. So, those people are giving a pushback and we have to be conscious about it when we proceed further. And if we see historically, there has been a sidestepping of biophysical constraints by economists. They only talk about capital and labor and more recently about technology. Resources, they have started talking only now after climate change issues have come into prominence. Economists are concerned with return on capitals, but they don't talk about energy return on energy invested. This is a very important concept. A lot of research is being done in the last maybe 10 years on this topic. Engineers, particularly chemical engineers, they look at life cycle flows. And energy economists have neglected it for most part, and I will illustrate this by an example, actual example. Because of the kind of subsidies which were available in UK for using the wood pellets in thermal power plants, they started importing wood pellets from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There they were getting, in USA, the people who are making these wood pellets, they were getting some subsidies, in UK they were getting some subsidies. Then some energy economists started calculating energy return on energy investment. You spend energy for making wood pellets, you transport them to UK, and then in the thermal power plants you get something out of it. Energy return on energy invested came less than 1, about 0.7. So these subsidies are distorting the entire process, and this data is available, and now I think they are stopping this entire process. It's a very recent thing, only last 4 or 5 years this whole thing came into.
Okay, sir, if you have got more points, kindly give it to
I
us.
have written
It's
about
very,
it, sir. I have sent you my papers on this.
we entirely agree, at least on the first 5 points I have noted, and we'll take it further. So next,
We have few more questions. Bioresources, we have to be mindful of the energy which is spent on transporting biofuels to the point where we are going to do some processing. Since biofuels have very low calorific value as compared to coal or oil, the energy which is spent on
agreed, sir. Biofuel revolution is going to be the revolution. That is already defined.
But we have to be mindful of that it has to be so used that transportation distance is minimized. Where small plants spread.
Right, it is all interconnected, and
They are not going
biofuel we well taken and we are aware of it. It's just like millets, you see.
We are going to have a lot of problem there unless we do the analysis.
you are going to get
done
biscuits, I know.
conventionally in chemical engineering, life cycle analysis, that will become a must there. And processes
Okay,
are so tuned that EROI
Can we
becomes very
take some
nice.
other question, Professor Grover,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah,
And
I
Professor-
think what I will like to say here is maybe we have to, policies have to be so formulated.
Yeah.
We cannot say, think in binary terms, this is good, this is bad. It's a mix of everything is needed. We have to have a diverse technology so as we are able to get benefit of the positive features of all technology. to say that we'll go 100% solar or 100% wind or 100% nuclear is not desirable. Have a mix of everything, because everything has positives and negatives. Don't think in
Correct,
terms of
sir.
0 and 1.
It's not only desirable, you cannot do
You
it.
can show them.
100% solar, you can never do it, sir. That, so nothing could be delayed. This is millet cooking come, but millet, 100% millet will never come.
I'll just want to focus on one thing.
Then we'll
Yeah, I would just
next
like to,
round.
I would just like to focus on,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would just like,
Biofuel is a bad idea.
Bad idea.
Should not be burned. Carbon should be used for making chemicals materials. It should be non-carbon based energy source, whether it is nuclear, hydrogen.
Well, sir, I have told Dr. Singh to have a seminar on biofuel revolution.
Yeah, okay, let us
Yeah.
listen to him.
So-
Please, yes, go ahead.
yeah, so I want to speak specifically about CCUS and carbon capture. See, the thing is, the basic thing that is stopping it in India is an improper understanding of geology. What has happened is, see, if you go and, I've spoken to ONGC engineers about this, and that's why I'm talking about it. When we went and proposed a plan to them, what they said was, usme tel hi nahi hai, the oil field. Okay. Now what I thought about it, I said, why are these guys saying that there's no oil in that field? Because under primary recovery, you cannot take over more than 40%. Then you have to do secondary recovery with water flood. Then you do a carbon dioxide enhanced oil recovery. So I said, why is it that these guys are saying that it is not possible? Then I thought about it. See, what has happened in India is the Soviets helped us with the oil fields. They did not estimate the right amount of oil that was in the field. They didn't estimate the current oil in place. That is why they felt कि सभी जो बोला था वो निकाल दिया. अभी उसमें कुछ है ही नहीं. So what has happened is, so what you need to do in this case, yeah. So what you need to actually do in this is, there's even just on an India basis, we've done a detailed study. You can store around 2.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide. That's number one. 2.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide, and if you put it in saline aquifers, it is 10 times as much. Okay, and you can produce around, today with the kind of reserves we have, around 5.6 million barrels a day. Second, I want one more point.
On this context, actually I had invited Ministry of Petroleum, a lot of officials from all the oil companies. Unfortunately, Prime Minister has called a big meeting today. So all of them are busy and they cannot come on 6th and 7th. So we can have a small session on oil, gas and energy, and we have a center over here at IIT Bombay. Center of Excellence.
Okay, on CCUS.
No. Center of Excellence in Oil, Gas and Energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, there's another thing. We talk about,
Let us have a
Dedicated group.
yeah.
dedicated group for doing this. And
Then there's 3 points.
we get oil at a lower price.
Yes.
and
Let him complete.
can refine it and sell it to
Yeah. There's this-
Western countries. It's so far so good also.
See, the second thing is, the entire energy system in India has been designed wrongly. I'll tell you why. 60% of our crude oil imports, yeah. So see, in 2 minutes I'll cover it. Yeah, I've got there's a whole project called the East Coast Energy Corridor. Yeah. So 60% of our crude oil is imported through 3 terminals near the Pakistani border. All our oil reserve, all the refineries, 7 of them are located along the Salaya Mathura pipeline. Whereas the reserves are located in Pudur and in Visakhapatnam. So what has happened is, if somebody bombs the refineries, you cannot use that crude oil. So what you need actually is, you need something called the East Coast Energy Corridor.
That is a debatable point, yes.
No, but see, I've been in the oil industry for 27 years, so I know exactly. I know, but anyway, so we can discuss this. The third thing is, how do you raise the money for financing hydrogen projects? You know, a couple of years ago, L&T came up with one very ingenious plan in the Bandra Kurla, in Bandra, there was a 93-acre plot. They came up with this plan they said, we will spend 93-acre plot, Mada colony, they said, we will spend 30,000 crores on it. We will sell it for 1,20,000 crores and we'll give the government of Maharashtra 70,000 crores in cash. It's like a fast breeder nuclear reactor, this kind of financing model. And I've actually designed a whole scheme. The entire Gati Shakti project is designed on this. Yeah, so we can.
That's very good.
Thank you. Yes, yes, just. So the points, sir, I would just want to focus on, apart from the ones you said were wonderful, is we should include e-waste and satellite waste when it comes to green. Sir, my other paper says we might need Shamshan Ghat for robots very soon, the way we are digitizing. Second is we must look at traditional water management systems for water issues. Sir, Shamshan Ghat for robots would be required if we go at digitization at this speed. So we need to look into e-waste and satellite waste management. Second is we must look at traditional water management systems to resolve the water issues. I've been to Rajasthan, Bihar, Gujarat and Haryana, where I found khund, khadin, talabs, johar, boalis, as well as ahar pines, which are traditional flood water harvesting techniques. So maybe we should look into that. Last but not the least, swarm technology coupled with biotechnology can cause damages which cannot be imagined. So cyber security has to be a very important layer. If somebody wants to know about this future, which is just right across the corner, please read a book by the name Swarm by Michael Crinton to know what we are referring to. Thank you.
There are a lot of cyber security lawyers around.
Mr. Dalmia,
Yes,
please.
sir. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Dalmia.
So, on the subject,
Can I speak? This is, I have a different school of thought on geological storage to begin with. So I'll start with the carbon capture and storage that he was speaking about. We are speaking about 2047, that is 25 years from now, when geological storage shouldn't be our solution. We should think about only mineralization or direct carbon capture, because geological storage has got a lot of other negative repercussions. That is one.
No, please don't say like this. DST has sponsored a project to IIT Bombay. So please be careful. There's a big group working here on storage. All right? And this is a, listen. Please understand one thing. No,
Yeah, exactly.
DST's
CCU is
main
a good
focus is
option, but
on
there are-
storage.
Sir, I know you're doing
Okay,
very-
please,
that way
please.
Even Japan is doing
Okay,
an
go ahead
ocean
with your
storage.
point. Go ahead.
But it need not be the best option because
Sure.
we're speaking about 2047. And the next thing is what he was speaking. Even I will bat for green hydrogen in a big way. Green hydrogen for both transportation as well as for industrial applications, I think is one of the... Yes, exactly. That is the way forward. Whatever we say against green
Fine.
hydrogen, it has a lot of good potential.
Excellent.
And the third thing that I want to mention about is we are moving towards electric vehicles, but that can be fully successful only if our grid is fully based on renewable energy to a great extent. I'll make it brief.
Thank
The
you very
rest I've
much.
given in
So,
writing.
Mr. Dalmia.
yeah, I was on the subject of the water. India is bountiful of rains, and all our requirements can be met if we channelize this water in a correct way, like better storage. Like for a simple example, the storm water drainage all across the highways, expressways and railways. And if we make the water recharge tables intermittently on these, that will recharge the ground very well. All such solutions of storage, proper storage with lining and all, will give us a lot of sufficient water to meet our future requirement. Regarding the pollution, the India is very high on the infrastructure growth for the next 2 or 3 decades. And infrastructure, as we know, it generates a lot of pollution. How can we cut down the wastage or the pollution from this? Like some ideas can be like pre-cast solutions, pre-factory made items to be used in the infrastructure instead of doing in situ casting and having, and then the haulage of the material can be reduced in the transportation if we use some pre-engineered materials, like geosynthetics can be alternative material for the construction. So these ideas should be used. Landfill waste management is again a very serious subject. In India, still we do not have any landfill, municipal landfill with proper water leachate savings. Still the water goes into, leachate goes into the ground.
But sir, the question is going on, should we at all do landfill? So
We
the
have to-
question is another debatable.
Unless until we have another solution, which is escaping till now, that, see, one is the how do we address the mountains of the waste. Second
take 2
is
minutes.
where do we dump it? There are toxic waste from industries. There are municipal waste. Where do we dump it? Unless until, because all these landfills that we have, none of them are lined.
Don't dump it. Transfer it to energy. Sir, let us come to the next.
Yeah, please. No, but he has not completed yet.
Oh, you have not completed.
That's okay, I think
Okay.
you can continue.
You can please send your comments to us.
Yeah,
We'll
sure.
compile
Yeah,
it.
but you see, this landfill.
Okay, let's talk to him.
There
You
can
have
be
to catch a
different
flight in 14 minutes. Yeah, please.
Okay.
One minute. Yeah, yes.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
I would like to
You have
talk
hardly-
about the utilization of our resources.
Yes.
There, I would say that we can learn from China because we at L&T have been extensively working for supplying equipment to China also. China, just like India, is largely dependent on imported crude oil as well as natural gas. So they decided to utilize their vast reserves of coal available and carry out gasification. Now this gasification, they are converting that into various products, useful products. One is ammonia urea. Now the advantage of doing this is, one thing, ammonia, there's an integrated capture of carbon dioxide. And that CO2 will be used to make urea. So CCUS is already inbuilt into manufacture of urea. We don't have to look for other alternative. Second is methanol. They're going for methanol economy. Now methanol, where they're using is, one of the important things is converting methanol into olefins. That is ethylene and propylene. Now, currently, worldwide, including India, ethylene propylene we are producing using naphtha as the feedstock or using ethane or propane, which is again dependent on natural gas. So, you're dependent on crude oil or natural gas to make olefins. Now, these olefins are the building blocks of petrochemicals. In India, if you see, our consumption of petrochemicals is far less than the global average also. So, definitely there is need for increasing petrochemical usage. So, India can think of this alternative.
No,
Second,
that's why you are leapfrogging.
yes.
We should do leapfrogging.
Yes, we should do that. The second part is methanol in China. There, of course, as Professor Yadav said, converting into DME, which they are supplying to homes as substitute for LPG. We are importing a lot of LPG in India. Next, also is methanol they are blending with gasoline, using as a fuel. Third part is methanol converting into chemicals like formaldehyde, acetic acid, MTBE, and so many others, which will spur the growth of other smaller chemical industries in India. So this is something which can be done. Other part is I'm saying on plastics. Now plastics menace is also there. It's a big issue. Now plastics, there are new technologies which converts that back into naphtha. And naphtha can be again used to make plastics. So it's a circular economy. So we should look at this technology also.
No, plastic like that many scrap steel. You see, that is one. Steel is consuming so much of, getting so much of carbon. So therefore, you convertible steel. But then when we try to collect more data and to find it out, we don't have enough scrap steel. And we don't have skill to collect this scrap steel.
Agree.
So it's a all we'll have a another work.
Another,
Put you in touch with each other. Yeah.
and just one more thing is now there are biodegradable plastics also. There's a thing called PBAT, that is polybutyl adipate terephthalate, which is biodegradable, which biodegrades in 1 month compared to hundreds of years or a century that conventional plastics take. And so this again comes from petrochemical based stock. So this is something that India should look into.
Thank you. Professor Nagesh?
Yeah.
2 minutes, please.
Yeah.
Sure.
Probably less.
Oh, thank you.
Given a paper to
Yeah, I have got
pages of that. See, actually, when we talk about 47 top 27 commitments. So, after water, it is the cement that is used maximum in the construction industry. So, just like he said, 2 kilograms, you said, for production of steel, it is same thing about cement.
cement, almost.
Yeah, you produce 1 metric ton of cement, you produce 1 metric ton of equivalent of carbon dioxide. So we are now looking at, the depleting resources, natural resources like sand and even the making of steel. We are not even talking about green steel. So I think there is an urgent need to look into the kind of alternate materials, because the depletion of waste has a depletion of natural resources has a direct impact on the ecosystem and the environment itself. So are we there somewhere, where we can look at alternate engineered materials which are durable, sustainable, etc. So we talked about even red mud. There is a big program that is going on, valorization and everything. So like use of what is the waste for somebody is a wealth for somebody. So are we looking at categorizing, and it should have been generalized rather than being in a compartmental mode, of thinking which is a waste and which is useful waste, etc. And low carbon, even when we talk about the cooling technologies, I don't see much talk on the low carbon technologies that are used for cooling. Then unfortunately we all come from civil engineering background. So we have a system where everything is fragmented. We don't work together.
No, I don't agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm proud that you are civil engineer.
I am not accusing you. I am accusing everybody here, all engineers. See, we don't talk to each other. If you talk about
right.
infrastructure, it consists of several systems.
No.
This is the first time we are talking to each other.
We talk about power supply, we talk about energy, we talk about renewable energy, so many things. Somewhere some integration has to happen. And this integration is not taking place at the desired level as it should have taken place by now. We talked about 2035, that is our commitment. 2020 there was a commitment, but we are not, now we have to think of 2047. But our COP27 commitment is the kind of integration of these technologies must come. It's not that we are completely fragmented, but there is still a fragmented approach. We should really look at, because we are talking about infrastructure, we should be very careful in the way we do things. So it is like, you build a wall and then again ask someone else to break it and then plaster it. I think that is not a very desirable solution.
When you say
You have to catch a flight. I have to close this session in 10 minutes, please. Okay, Narayan.
Come back to the final statistics is, we are talking
I know.
so many, things that urbanization of several things happening. We are producing more than 30% of waste. What's happening to that waste? Which is either demolished or just discarded. I mean, these are things which are very serious.
C&D.
Not just C&D alone.
After-
but it's, beyond C&D, we should really look at that.
It's done?
done.
Please write it down and send.
I have already.
Okay, very good. Please, yes, Professor.
Okay, I thought, I'll increase the problem a little more about.
No, don't increase the
I
problem.
want to increase it. Because in any case, whatever.
The session cannot be extended.
No, he is increasing the problem.
The size of the problem I thought should be more because our per capita energy consumption is 1,000 units of electricity per person per year. And we are aspiring to be like G7 at G20 level right now. G7 countries' average consumption of electricity is 15,000 units of electricity per person per year. If you have to reach up to China level, next level of aspiration, it is currently at 5,000 units of electricity per person per year. So I would believe that we will catch up with China at least in the next maybe 20-30 period of time. So you are going to be generating, currently we generate around 4 lakh megawatt is installed capacity. I would presume we will be generating near to 2.5 million megawatt, 25 lakh megawatt by 2047. Approximate backward envelope calculation. None of the solutions you guys are talking about are going to be serving the country. In any case, oil and gas are available storage is less than 1% of the global reserve. Coal is also less than 7% only. And 43% of all the electricity that we are going to consume in the future is going to be for stupid application on air conditioning. Because we are a hot country. Because when somebody mentioned about a room to be electrified with 10 lamps also is only 80 watts. But the air conditioner in a bedroom is 1.5 kW, 1500. So the ratio of lighting to air conditioning is 1:30 minimum, 1:40 in central air conditioning. And we still have a stupid compressor which is giving you an efficiency of 43%. Whatever you talk about, I'm talking about there is a big problem. The largest elephant in the room is energy. And none of the solutions you guys are talking about are going to solve it. I support it. Hydrogen is the best solution for it. But will you really make it at $1?
Yes, that is.
I bet my entire life on that.
We make it portable, yes.
So
I'm also one of them who worked on that.
we have.
Okay, so just a minute, please. So your
I'm only trying to
issues
say
are over?
this is a
Very
big
good.
problem. No,
Excellent.
Just last part is
Yes,
that
please.
we cannot have a selective switch approach to energy shifting that. There is an energy transition needed in the country. You are a coal-based economy currently, fossil-based, and whatever is non-fossil is informed power. So we need to have an informed to become firm as a solution number one, as a transition, and green technology, and exactly your circular economy in the last to happen in the next 25 years period of time.
Okay.
How do we do that? We need more brains than whatever we have in the country to really work on. This is the largest problem this country is going to face.
Thank you, Dr. Venu.
The conclusion is.
No, sir. आप कतार में हैं. You are in a queue.
The conclusion is 2047
He is there in the
will
queue.
solve most
Please,
of the problems.
wait. Yes.
32 megajoule.
Oh, Baba.
plus 0.2 kg of chemicals. But 1 kg of biomass, which you are talking about bioethanol, gives only 6 megajoule, but it can give 0.8 kg of chemicals. So
Okay.
it is better to convert biomass into chemicals and materials and not energy. So all the countries across the world which are talking about biofuel, they are basically wrong. So that objective of 2047 or 2050 will not be achieved. With carbon-based economy, you may call it carbon neutral, but it will not. So I have argued this in my paper. I can share it.
Okay, please share it with me. Yes, please, Dr. Venu.
So, just like so many languages
Last one
coexist in India, I'm sure it will be multimodal and multi-fuel. That is a more realistic, practical way to look at it. It's not hydrogen versus electric, it's hydrogen and electric and something else also. That's what we truly need. But coming back to electric, which is where I put my bets on, for electric to be truly green, it has to come, electricity should come from renewable sources. But when I say that, suddenly the demand for battery or any energy storage is going to be doubled because the electric vehicles need it, my solar or wind also would need. So suddenly there is a double the demand for the batteries. And we talked about lithium, cobalt and everything, where we have a lot of big concerns around availability of these materials. So what it finally translates to is, India traditionally has been a strength area when it comes to metallurgy, chemical engineering, and metallurgical process exists to recycle 90% of a lithium-ion battery and get everything back. People have demonstrated it exists. All it needs is system-level engineering and innovations to build a viable business around it. Because this is a real big business opportunity, not just at an India level, but at a global level we can crack this. And this is really big business from an economics point of view, to just crack this code of recycling and reusing the lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
One point from my side, basically, we always take pride in that whatever technology we use today, in military domain, it comes to civilian after 10 to 15 years. So in this case also, I take pride in saying that last year 80 crore worth project was executed for making bunkers without using 1% of concrete. 2035, our quarries will finish. We are going to import it from Indonesia and other countries. So we have already deployed graphene-based cement and CO2-based cement, extracting CO2 from the air, and we were able to execute 80 crore. And literally production is less. We are not able to execute more. I have got project worth 190 crore to be executed, but it should be green construction. Coming on warming, in my case, I have to warm things in high altitude area, even my electronics, as well as my personals. So basically, we have designed certain material and I will say design of the habitat itself. It brings down the temperature, and we have started using aluminum foil inside the bunker itself, so that natural warming can be achieved. So this type of small innovation, small work, we have got 16 patents in this area. In Sroth, startup research and operational technology, it is the biggest startup hub. Just we have executed in Pune under J. Kumar infrastructure. So one can execute it. The patent is open for all, and it can be brought down from the high altitude, which we are already executing it. And currently, as I am speaking, and there are 16 sites where we are making bridge out of the same concrete, with the same lifespan and same quality. So there are options. So instead of creating one more options and reinventing the wheel, the same can be executed. Say, armed forces can be contacted. What are you doing for same? So you just have to transplant it on ground over here. And it is, we are able to do it in 3/4 cost of the current concrete technology which is being used.
Thank you.
Fly ash is not an option. Fly ash is a very dirty form of energy.
I think you should be in touch with my research group. We are also trying to do something, but creating bunkers without concrete and with insulation. Fine. Thank you very much. So with this, Professor Chakravarti, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you.
I think you can catch your flight.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Let us give a thank you for coming all the way from Delhi and making this session possible.
It has been very enjoyable, and I have enjoyed it.
But now you have a responsibility. We will send you all the emails.
Yes. And then we'll respond. And then we'll have small workshops.
Sure. Please. Thanks a lot. They will take care of it. अरे ये आपके मतलब क्या है? 2 मिनट कितने बजे? Please also go to the airport. साथ में चले आएंगे. Yeah. So, well, so now we are on the 4th session of the brainstorming, and you must have realized that the tempo has slightly slowed down, and now we are going to depend upon our next moderator on Suraksha, Group Captain Amitabh, and his credentials are: he served in aeronautical engineering, electronics for 33 years. He is a former senior research fellow at the Center for Air Power Studies, and he's an expert in surface to air guided weapons, airborne weapon systems, and electronic warfare. So over to you, Captain.
Thank you. Before I start this session, I would like to give a, can I have a presentation? I'm taking some clues from what has happened in the Ukraine-Russia war. The reason is, it is the current war, and I'm not talking about the political part, who's right, who's wrong. I'm just trying to draw some lessons from the three services and from the armed forces, how this warfare is trying to change the paradigm, the way war is being fought. You see, in 1991, when the Gulf War has demonstrated how a conventional war has transformed by technology, and why technology is used in the armed forces is that if we can reduce the resources, the number of casualties, why not use it? And so technology today has become so important that every war is more of a technological war, and how the leaders who are managing this technology, how they use this to gain victories has become more important rather than the way it was being fought earlier. So therefore, the diffusion of technologies has changed the character of warfare. And one slide, because there are few things which have come up in the recent warfare is that earlier the war used to be 1:1. This time the war is not 1:1. It is 1 against plenty. So there are changes in the way the war is being fought. Number 2 is the civil military. Today, the militaries today are using more of dual-use technologies. So initially we had tanks, we had aircraft, which nobody had. The fighter aircraft were not being used for any private reasons. But today, the kind of technology which is getting ingested into the armed forces is dual-used. And therefore, there are more challenges, because there are holes in the technologies which can be used by someone who's anti-national, so we have to protect ourselves. So when we look at today, why we're looking at today is that these are the debates which happen, because we don't fight war every day, and we might have the technology and we claim that it is the best, but actually the technology during war comes into the play and we find that this is better than that, and that has didn't prove. So if the war is not being fought, we don't know our enemy. All these challenges actually make our life more difficult. And hence, we have to understand that there are 6 or 7 points which I want to highlight is, first of all, look at India. We have varied kind of geography where the technology is to be used at high altitude. So a drone being used in high altitude may require a different kind of technology than a drone being used on a desert or in the coastal areas. Secondly, in this case, Russia may not have used the best technologies, but when we fight a war, it is possible that our adversaries will use the best technology, whatever he has. And then how do you know what kind of technology he has all the time? Because the technology is being exploited against us only during the war in the complete fashion. Otherwise, he does bits and pieces and we keep on correlating. Then, new concepts like jointness, you have to fight the war jointly. So all the 3 services will have different equipment, but they have to join war. So there has to be a standardization when it comes to, because interoperability becomes very, very important. The war today in Ukraine has become more of very, very transformational, because there is nothing which is hidden. Because of satellites, because of drones, because of all these new internet and things like that, today everything is transparent. And that is a challenge for a commander because he does not know that his moves are being watched by others. And second, we call it the loop. The moment you identify a target and identify that it is an enemy, you launch your systems and destroy it. So the cycle is becoming shorter by the day. And when it becomes shorter by the day, you have to ensure that you don't hit your own chaps. So you have to identify the right man, take the correct decision, use the correct weapon, because you can't use a very expensive against a small drone which is costing few dollars. So you have to use, these are the challenges which are being seen today. And another point which I wanted to bring out is, during all these wars, the debates are, the days of tanks are over, the days of aircrafts are over. No, these are not over. All these major platforms are here to stay. Only thing is, if a tank is moving, you need a drone ahead of it to see what is, if there is enemy on the other side. If an aircraft is flying, you might have a number of drones flying in the aircraft which will get ejected, do its job, come back to this aircraft and comes back. So there will be a new changes where the platforms, the ships will remain. The only thing is in the sinking of Moscow ship or using of a undermanned drone, using very, very cheap technology, improvised, using sensors. It went and attacked ships which were on the port. And what happened? The ships could not roll out. So you have very expensive ships, but they cannot go out of the port because of the threat which is looming large on you. So the challenges for the armed forces are plenty, and all the new technologies, whether 5G or 6G, latest input is that China is using hypersonics using 6G technology. So you have to understand that all new technologies which you see on the horizon are being used for the armed forces, but all these are dual technology, yes, at the cost of repetition I'm saying so, and thirdly, it is the imagination. When you look at drones, we can talk about drones, the way it has been used, the different shapes, sizes, and the cost is so cheap that it has transformed the way the war is being fought. But I'm not saying that, I'll show you a photograph of a drone which was used earlier for doing surveillance and targeting. But now the drone is not very useful. Some other kind of drones are being used. Loitering munitions are being used where you are in the air and then you select your target while being in there and then you select the target. So transformation is happening. The challenges are far too many. And the another thing is that kinetic warfare and non-contact. There are two kinds of warfare. The kinetic warfare which you are seeing in Ukraine, and we were told in our classes that all these wars will be short and swift. But today, it's almost going to be 24th of February will be the celebration of 1 year of this warfare. So the challenges are that if you are fighting a war for a longer time, you need supply chain management. You have to ensure that the critical equipment is available to you for a longer period than what you had perceived. And therefore, not only the kinetic warfare, but it is the non-contact warfare, which is also initially, the initial war used to be contact warfare. But now we are finding new weapons where the enemy does not come into a contact. He fires from a distance and there it is. And if he is firing weapons from a longer distance, then you have to have countermeasures to see where is he attacking. If he's attacking you have to ensure that all your equipment in the vital areas are well defended. And how do you defend them? It could be radars. It could be making the structure so strong that even if the attack takes place, you are still able to take on the targets. So therefore, the combatants are using a wide range of military and non-military ways. And therefore, they are seeking advantage of each other. And it is a constant battle. So when the war starts, you have to involve technologists from all streams into your domain to evolve all the time. And especially electronic warfare is one warfare which is used only during war. And you have to keep on tinkering with your tricks. Because the moment he understands the way you are jamming him, he will make a counter. And the moment you are totally exposed and then he fires at you. So therefore, the challenges are in military technology. Can you go to the next slide? I'm talking about the first, the artillery is here to stay. And what has happened in this, even the civilians have used their so-called there's a app called ATA, with help of which the civilians saw that there is a threat. They used to tell the commander used to decide, and the nearest artillery gun used to fire. So there has been an assimilation of large number of civil civil technologies to make a commander wise enough to see what's happening and use the right weapon at the right time. The tanks, as I mentioned a little earlier, there was a talk that the days of tanks are over, but then the tanks will require a redesign. So you need better technology to make it more safer. And the third crucial part which has come up is the urban warfare. And in the urban warfare, if somebody is firing from behind a building, we need technology to see that we can see him inside the building, what is happening. These technologies are coming up, but the fact is, these are the threats which I'm trying to convey to you, that these are the emerging threats. Next slide. For us, offensive air will remain the important part, because in this war, we have not seen too many Russian aircraft flying into the Ukrainian territory. So they're firing from a distance, and then they're hitting at their targets with impunity. Similarly, when you're being hit, you need a very good air defense. It could be layered air defense. And this layered air defense will require new technologies, because jamming is a problem. Again, I mentioned about drones. Drone is you can leave it to somebody's imagination how he can design and how can. So there are various type of drones which are coming up, to an extent that one development is taking place where he'll fly as high as a satellite. So he will have his own charging through the solar means, and constantly he's looking at the targets below. And since he's flying constantly at such a big height, that for him, imagery, he's doing the same role as if that of his satellites. Same helicopters. In the first attack, 7 hours, that was the most critical time, where we call it DIAD and CIAD. That is suppression of enemy air defense. Before these helicopters reach with the soldiers, the air defense base had to be neutralized, and it failed. So that means you need cooperation, and the helicopters have to become more safer for them to fly in this area. Next. I mentioned about naval warfare, that this ship was downed by a Neptune missile, and see the cost that today all these ships have to be safer while they're sailing. So the technology, again, investment of technology will be there to make them more safer. The new problem is like drones in the air, that there are drones under the water, and these drones have become very, very difficult to tackle, because they are able to carry variety of roles. Next slide. Now coming to joint warfare. Now, unlike Russia, Ukraine could do a very good combined control by having small pockets of leaders, and who were able to do it with impunity. And therefore, when we are fighting together, we have to have standardization where everyone is able to talk to each other and able to fight. And electronic warfare is used only during war. So you have to keep on developing your tricks, but you don't know, only during war that you get to know what is happening. So during war, if you find your equipment is not performing to the best of the capability, you might have to fine-tune it. And for that, you need technicians, you need scientists, and you need people behind you to help you during these critical times. AI is going to be a threat which Wing Commander Sudhakaran will, and cyber, of course, is an ultimate weapon which is happening, where all the time using cyber, people have been using psychological warfare and things like that. So there is no end to it. Now I leave everyone, others to please raise those points, because there are lots of technologies which are happening. Like, for example, hypersonic. Today, hypersonic weapon which flies at 5 to 6G is being developed. Of course, we are also developing, but we need counter technologies to ensure that we get to know when is he doing it, and if we are able to neutralize that weapon, nothing like it. But the issue is that all these new weapon systems which are coming requires new technologies to counter them. I now hand over for others to...
I'll also add a couple of points that we need attention to. While we talked about what are the possibilities that we can immediately be faced with, what we also need to understand as a country is we are a big-time importer as far as weapon system is concerned. Now, this was a possibility still yesterday. But today we are talking primarily about intelligence embedded systems, which means every system standalone, all by itself, it has got some level of intelligence by itself. So people who are conversant with cybersecurity, they know how to measure threat vectors. So far they would sandbox it, they would isolate it, they would look for signatures, and we can understand whether there is a threat coming out from a certain system or not. But please understand, intelligence-enabled technologies, when it behaves, you cannot determine whether there is a threat or not. Like for example, we have heard about the term zero-day vector, which means it will activate on a particular day. But intelligence-enabled technologies activates when certain conditions are met and when it is told. Like for example, when Biden sneezes, stop. Now that is something that you cannot measure as a cyber threat when you bring equipments. The point why I am making this is, we must understand that there is a time that is fast approaching us that we have to stop importing weapons. I'll give you the famous example of F-16. Pakistan was given F-16 by the United States and they geofenced it. It cannot use F-16 in an offensive role. So much so, post Balakot strike, the next day they didn't have a better platform to come to us. They used the F-16, but they were not supposed to be using it for offensive strike because US would have put it under sanctions. So that is why they bought a second-hand F-16 somewhere from Middle East, and then that is the F-16 that was used to fire upon Abhinandan's MiG-21. Now this is what they did on a 3.5 generation aircraft. Today when we talk about a 5th generation aircraft like an F-35, you can't even imagine what it does. And we are already into development of a 6th generation aircraft, which India is unfortunately not into. So if we are not concentrating, if any of our vision assessment discounts security, please understand we are back to the 16th century where we'll be chicken and fodder for another East India company. We are already under data colonialism from the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters and the Instagram, which I'm going to cover very shortly. So there is a serious threat from that angle. The second angle is the evolution of cyber threats that has come. In fact, the entire electrical grid can be put down in a matter of minutes. We buy equipments left, right and center just on SLAs. SLAs don't work. Why it doesn't work? When the Russian war happened, the entire Western ecosystem which signed SLA with the Russian government packed overnight. Not only did the technology giants pack, even McDonald's and the other pizza manufacturers left Russia. So if we were to naively believe that our money will save us, it is not going to. So we will not only need to indigenize big time, we'll have to ensure 100% of all our critical combat requirements are indigenized. So this particular framework which I made was keeping in mind touching all domains, but then the last two domains that I talk about are purely technology centric, and they could appear at variation from the other, but security is a byproduct. Like for example, when we talk about Swasthya, we were all hit by COVID and still we believe that it is a virus which came out of some bat. No, it didn't. Because if you look at the deep research and the material that is available and the kind of blockage that China does to the Wuhan lab, it is a no-brainer that it was a biological warfare which was inflicted on us. America runs around 4 biological warfare factories in Ukraine which Putin has actually caught. In fact, there was a general who was caught red-handed, and these are there in the intelligence report. But we as a country, we don't have our information narrative right. I will cover that in the next thing. But when it comes to security, we'll have to look at how we are affected biologically, how we are being threatened from the cyber domain, and how it is affecting even our fintech. For example, a ransomware tomorrow can come and lock you up. In fact, the AIMS servers were locked up and they asked for a ransomware. That's again part of, your entire AIMS OPD was paralyzed for weeks. We know that. And that was a cyber attack. So we have, we'll have to stop believing that somebody else will do cyber security for us. Cyber security is not buying antivirus from somewhere and saying that I've detected a virus. Because when it comes to attack you, it is not going to come with a profile that we already know.
Case in point, I will talk about the Stuxnet of the Iranian nuclear program. The entire nuclear program of Iran was derailed by a virus, computer virus, for 2 years. It brought its nuclear fusion rods down. So we need to study and learn from these examples, but unfortunately this country is not learning. That is the bottom line that I want to begin with. Why? Talk about DigiLocker. Majority of the people say that it's absolutely safe, I need to scale, I need to reach to people, we can't commit suicide, right? It is a literal suicide that we are committing, because in a DigiLocker, your voter ID card is going to be there, your PAN card is going to be there, your Aadhaar card is going to be there. And please understand, Google has your location data as well. Today, Google knows more about you than you yourself do. You sometimes forget where you were last month. It knows it better. It doesn't need to take that data to its data center. So even if you make the most tightest of SLAs, it will comply with it. All Google wants to know is which person moved where and what polling happened in a poll booth to understand your political affiliation. It can give that input to a political party to create a certain narrative to make you believe that this is the truth and this is how you need to vote. So it can manipulate your democracy. DigiLocker has today giving DigiLocker in Google's hand means you are compromising your democracy, and we don't seem to have understood it. Because some experts believe that I have prevented it going to a foreign data center and that's the beginning and end of it. Please understand, Android is
Sudhakaran sir, just can we take few questions? Yeah, please.
I think we'll try to move in a different direction. The fact that there is embedded intelligence in all the imports, this we should take it as a blessing in disguise. We should develop our own systems. There was embargo on nuclear establishment in India from 1974 onwards. The result is we manufacture everything related to pressurized heavy water reactors in India. I think Larsen Jubro does a lot of job, and so do other Walter-Nagar and this and all these things. So similar thing has to happen in case of defense. But here there is a message for IITs and other educational institutions. There are certain areas of research which were well nurtured in our university system, but they have slowly vanished because not being popular among students. One area, for example, is radio frequency engineering. There used to be a vibrant department in BHU. Does it exist now? I do not know. There used to be a high voltage engineering department in IIC Bangalore. Doesn't exist anymore. All these technologies are feeder technologies for defense systems. So we have to re-establish those technologies in this country, those departments in IITs and other universities in the country, so that we can meet the defense requirement based on research in India. So here I like to make a concrete suggestion. In 2018, France decided that in Saclay region, there are several national laboratories. There is Paris-Sud University. And they established the Paris-Saclay University, which combines 275 laboratories which were existing in that area. There are Synchrotron Center, Solin. There is CEA lab, Atomic Energy Lab there, and Paris-Sud. That came up with Paris-Saclay University. They are doing a similar thing in Grenoble region, where all the research centers and universities are being combined. Taking what we have done in Department of Atomic Energy, we established Homi Bhabha National Institute, is linking all our institutions together. Why can't similar things be done at other places? For example, take the city or Tri-City of Chandigarh. There are so many labs, so many universities. If they can be combined together, we can create vibrant research hubs. So this model where we combine national labs or labs set up by industry and universities together, then the two things will happen. Our system will become larger, and we'll be concentrating on those problems which are of national importance. So that is the solution. There are difficulties we know in the way weapons import is just not possible. To create hubs make clusters of national labs and universities and proceed further based on that. Thank you.
Just to build on your thoughts, the way I normally sort of think about this is, and you're right in saying these are feeder technologies, but if you look at it purely from an AI perspective, which we all are trying to build, which is around either data extraction, or which is around computer vision or voice analytics. And on the other side, if you look at the needs of the defense industry, these could be things like surveillance, things like intelligence, things like combat equipment, combat vehicles, all this stuff. हम यहाँ पे जंग तो जीतेंगे नहीं दोनों करके. So the thing is that if you look at like what is it that from an AI perspective or technologies that can be leveraged and built, and in some sort of a framework which says, okay, these are surveillance needs of the army, these are surveillance needs of the navy, these are surveillance needs of the air force, these are surveillance needs of the combined defense services. Similarly, if you go to intelligence, what are the intelligence needs of each of my services in the combined defense services? And maybe building on your thought, then pockets can be formed of research in different institutes, wherein these technologies can then be built further and stitched together somewhere. So I think if we do it in some sort of a framework and then lay it out with premier educational institutes, that's the point, limited point that I'm trying to make in terms of how some of these technologies and research around this can be enhanced. Yeah.
Sir, I have two things to say to it. First one will be the answer. We can't lay down our policies or the factors what we want out in public.
Exactly.
So until unless we sure that what is your TRL, MRL level and if does your technology supports us, we will not come to you and tell you. We've worked out with the Ministry of Science and Technology, especially DST. Over last 1 year, we are working out something where what we're doing right now is that we are identifying all the labs, all the startups, all the industries which are there which were identified in 2035 vision. We've just given them a list of 103 technologies, and we have asked them that please give us the details of the institutions or the startups or any agency who's working in those, and we would like to see and visit them, and we try to find out who's there. To part one, sir, what you need to understand, what is the need of the defense. We have a requirement of something called the niche technologies. Maybe you can say space is one niche for us, nuclear propulsion is one niche for us, hypersonics, counter hypersonics is one niche for us, where everyone cannot come into the play and understand what we want. So those are the technologies where we are very, very specific that whom we will engage with and whom we will do it. Unless we have the confidence that the firm can deliver, we will not come to you. The second one is majority, sir, which is called the dual use technologies. We had the lecture in this morning, education. A simple real life, I will give you examples from each field you've discussed today morning, sir. Education, you use real-time language translators. We also use it. You use for Indian languages, we will require it for foreign languages. Similarly, with health, you use every technologies for, let's say, for making new medicines. We also use it. But we would require something like for a nerve agent or something like that based. So everything what you have, each technologies which you say has a dual use for us. Just to identify and to speak to you is the issue. Now where does this issue happens is that we have a vision identified, but we do not have any specific, let's say, area or a site or an organization who's mapping all the industries in the India. Today if I ask you, sir, can tell me, let's say defense sector pathogens. There is no site, there is no agency which can tell me that how many startups or how many agencies are working over it. Similarly is in AI. If I ask specifically surveillance, CCTV surveillance, I will not be able to get. What is your TRL level? Where is your MRL level? Because until you give me that, for us the technology changes. Technology is 3 months, 4 months. Niche technology is 2 years. So until you give me your readiness level and where you can promise me and deliver, it does not happen that way. If you say that I will do research. So that is why we would be requesting specifically that, sir, there are 2 issues which need to be highlighted in this vision 2047 specifically. One is that there needs to be a review of the progress which is achieved, let's say after 5 years, 2 years, 5 years, whatever the time frame. Because what you've seen is once only you have you do the review, the database gets updated. And secondly, when you say a technology, we need to have some sort of TRL, MRL which is linked with it. So the data, when you do this, you promulgate this document, there needs to be a industry mapping, a complete industry mapping, and a TRL, MRL mapping needs to be done. Because then only it will transform that what the industry has and what can be implemented or used by the defense. And be rest assured, what we want, we are very clear in our mind. The only fact is, you can't put it in open domain. What we can put in open domain is already in open domain. But if there is any firm who feels that there has to be further engagement and they can support us, I'm in prospective planning and force structure. On an average, we receive about 50 to 60 emails from all firms, and we engage with every firm. Every firm is personally replied, a personal meeting, everything we do it. So if you have any capabilities or any firm has any capabilities, we make a point that we go and talk to them. So that is the case. Sir, we already have a project with IIT Delhi going on. Sir, the person who's sitting behind Major Arun, we just had a meeting with your IIT students today morning. What we are going to do? You want to do something? Okay. Fine. Just let me please.
I can add something if the time is there. Again, coming together of national labs and universities is very important. I gave an example of Paris Agri. Similar examples are there in USA also. In Princeton University, the Fusion Research Center funded by DOE sits there. And there is a seamless movement of faculty and staff between the two. Similarly, California Institute of Caltech and the Space Lab, they are the same campus, there is an exchange of this, and that is how this whole thing is moving. In Berkeley, the Synchrotron Center is sitting next. So this combination, which we know has succeeded elsewhere, will succeed in India as well, and that is the way forward, and it's the least cost solution. So the both should come.
Sir, I would like to add on this. Last 8 months, we have been to US, Ukraine, Russia, academia. The way their academia is, our academia is way, way different, sir. For example, when I was doing my engineering, we went to, as part of the project, we went to some industry for a day or two, and thereafter we did some machining, and we used to do machining every day. When I went to Kharkiv during this war, and the college is normal, they are working in the factory, they are part of the assembly line. They're instructors, they're professors, they're on the assembly line. And I said that it is because of war that you are here. They said no. Our college students, they are part of the assembly line. They will make the wing, they will make the drone, they will make the wheel. So, sorry to say, the skill of our youngsters who are coming out of engineering, it is just 3%. Whereas there it is 70%. Every second house, they have got a talent sitting who is just a diploma but better knowledge than our people. It is not because we have got some issue. It is because our education system, it is way beyond. I was stunned in Belarus, the way their college were running. They were saying, you have to strip open this IL-76, strip open this Me-70, Me-26. 4 students used to do it. Today I went to HL, there are 15 people on one Me-17 helicopter, 2 cranes, 4 people, 5 people will be standing behind, and thereafter they remove 1 blade. वहाँ 2 बच्चे खड़े हो जाते हैं, एक के ऊपर एक स्टूल लगाते हैं और ब्लेड निकाल लेते हैं. That is their expertise level. We don't have that expertise level because our expertise is completely theoretical. I did my master's from Idaho. When we were doing our engineering, we were told the material you are supplying, your industry is supplying, it is faulty, your marks will be cut. People were failed. They used to repeat a year because they were part of a production channel wherein they were making part of certain component of a Bell helicopter, and it was not up to the mark. So from there, from that side, right from the first grade and second year, they start training themselves in such a way that they are part. For example, हमारे यहाँ engineer, when we go to industry, we see, तो engineer मतलब बहुत बड़ा बाबू है. He is a big man. He is a big shot. But वहाँ पे नहीं. He is the person who is greased completely. He is wearing a jumpsuit. He is from MIT and he is under the vehicle and he is doing his job. हमारे यहाँ पे this red carpetism, it is right from the school till he is doing. अगर engineering के लिए बहुत बड़ा बात हो गया. नहीं, it is not. His hands are not greased. If he is in the lab, in College of Military Engineering, we have now ensured, we have just changed their complete syllabus also. We have increased their practical time to 8 hours every day. So they have to do it. And I'm so sure our elders, our veterans over here who are sitting, they must have done their engineering in that way. आजकल students are not like that. 5 बंदे अगर सामान दिख गया 100 किलो का, तो they want a crane to lift it. And people used to, एक बेल को उठाया, 4 लोग उठाते थे और रख देते थे साइड में. So when I went to IIT Delhi, I said कि you guys are doing good job, good engineering, ठीक है, but go to gym, start working out, start sweating. You guys are sweating inside with your mobile, with your laptop. It is okay, बहुत बढ़िया, ठीक है. But become mentally fit, physically fit. We want people who work on ground. We don't want babus. We have got enough. We have enough in my office and in both the South Block and North Block. Engineers are supposed to be on ground. They have to be dirty. They have to dirty their clothes. And तभी समझ में आएगा what is the system. Because in our place, HAL में भी चले जाते हैं तो engineer वहाँ काम नहीं करता. ITI वाले काम करते हैं. They have got more knowledge. They are much better. We were working on high altitude parachutes. I went to DRDO. Last 9 years, we were not able to make it. And there is a company, there is a small startup. We just paid them 1.25 crore and they made better parachute. From 9 years, we have spent almost 2,000 crore on a stupid project. When I personally visited, कि fact finding करते हैं, तो nobody had knowledge. If I ask them to make a parachute, they will issue a tender of parachute to make a parachute. This is not R&D. ये मजाक चल रहा है. It is not an R&D. R&D is that you start from the scratch. You develop a component. You should know each and everything of that particular component. You should be able to strip open a vehicle if you are an automobile engineer. You should be able to get it back in shape. You should assemble it and start.
What happens to those people who work on computers, no, ultimately? Or
You are talking about what a mechanic might do and what an engineer does. I think these are two very different things. You have to go to some good lab, like maybe go to DAE or something and see what real engineering is. It's not about just building things. You have to design it. You have to put your mind to it. When you come up with new reactions.
No, that's why we have now contacted tier 2 colleges, almost 400 colleges. Correct.
And in fact, also I'd like to
Everyone, exactly.
come to ICT.
Yeah.
ICT, the kind of industrial linkages which they have, because of which they are able to do all these things, that's what the place will do.
So that's why
No, sir, what?
Sir,
Sir, may I add one point?
Pointer.
No, sir, what we are doing right now is we've just trying to get in touch with all autonomous institutions which are there with the IT, as well all incubation hubs. In next 6 months, we'll be getting in touch with all incubation hubs, trying to understand what are the research projects which are there, and we'll be giving them specifically our projects, what we want to do them, in a way of dual-use technologies. We will not be giving them something to start afresh, but we will be trying to, whatever they are already doing, in the problem statement, we'll be adding our problem statement and telling them, please, if you can do this for us or something like that. So that is already in pipeline.
And to substantiate it, we have got now professors from Ukraine. We have placed them in IIT Madras. We have asked them to come on, let us start from zero. Because actually we have to exchange best practices. So we have got from US, you have got from Belarus, from Russia, and we have started sabbatical programs. And so that...
So can I add one point? This is one side of the story. On the other side of the story, I am working with several projects or as a designer in BEL as well as some of your projects. The cases I will tell you, I explain later.
some of your requirements are not even this centuries. You are asking something which is 20, 30 years old, which is practically not possible and which is discarded several decades back. This is also a fact you should accept.
The next challenge for us is kinetic warfare is one part. I was attending a seminar on CBR and it was a closed door. So the gentleman said this century is the century of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear warfare. So we need sensors, we need equipment to do that. And why did he say that? He says you see in Afghanistan and also in Ukraine, the physical war where you are using tanks and all is getting prolonged. There is not a quick solution to this because if he has tanks, this chap has got a tanks. So this is a different level that I'm talking about. Is that we need sensors to look into this. And in this warfare, which I just mentioned, we just don't know what kind of developments are taking place because computers have come into the play where the development is happening and you don't know what kind of solutions are.
So you have to understand the problem of statement first when you say the technology. When you start developing, the time of development for a particular defense R&D is 2 months. You get an equipment, let's say I bought an equipment in 2000. By the 2005, by the time I get that equipment is 2005. Now if I do my own R&D, it takes about 10 years for us to R&D to build up, trials to happen and all. By the time the equipment comes to me, it's already next to obsolete. For me to maintain and use the technology to take care of the money which I spent on the R&D and to use it, because I cannot go back to government in 2010 and again say no, the equipment which has just come up because of the 10 years of R&D has gone back. So I have to use the technology which you're saying has got obsolete. Because till the time the government gives me again fund for developing it, I have to use that weapon. Again, if I give you a technology of today, when I give you a technology, I'll give you technologies of, let's say, today is 2020, I'll say 2035 this is going to be technology. Let's say, I'll say quantum technologies. When you come for the quantum technology and you produce the equipment, it will already be 2035. When there will be a new technology in force instead, the technology changes, sir. We want also to change the technologies because unlike other people, other fields, we do not have the second chance. If we do not change, we get changed. The photograph comes on the wall. So that is the way. So that is the issue.
But I explained.
So if you got something better, so why don't you come and make one route, sir? Make one route is the fastest route which we can take over. It is just 50 weeks, it will come into induction stage. You should contact
Sir, you will be most welcome at our office. You can come up or you can give us a call to us. We will make a trip to you, sir. And we can sit and discuss. We are all open to travel everywhere.
Very nice. I think I'm happy that you two are talking to each other. And please continue this more and more for the safety and security of the country.
Sometimes the innovation
Yeah, you please use the mic so that it gets recorded. Yeah.
See, sometimes the innovation is in the contract. It is not just in the technology. So, if you want to develop, say, a new product or a new, let's look at a gun, right? If you want to develop a handgun, the DRDO took years to do it. There are people who have actually, hiring designers to, let's say, a chap who's developed the MP5 or one of the other weapons, right? Hiring designers, he gets his entire thing with him. When you hire a designer and you write a contract that shortens the cycle time to a product for a product to be developed, you're not looking at it in terms of design or in terms of technology, but you're looking at contract innovation to make that thing happen faster.
Sir, I share the same feeling with you.
Yeah.
But the problem which is there is we have the government of India rules to follow.
That's true. See, finally, somebody has to write the contract. You write a contract, it will take its time to get approved. But at least the initial effort of writing an innovative contract is something that should be attempted. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I think can we wind it up? Captain Mathur, anything else? You like to sum it up? I'm sure that there are few guys who are the same lines and thinking accordingly. You can please sit with them and make a summary of the recommendations which can be submitted to TIFAC. I think that because there was a very good discussion which went on. What do you say, Raj? You want to say something? So thank you very much. So now we are moving on to the last session of the day. That is the session number 5 on Suchana. Information. Please. Moderator of this session is Wing Commander S. Sudhakaran. He is the MD and CEO of Q Gates Technologies. I think this much introduction is good enough. He has put in a lot of efforts along with Ritika to make this session, in fact the entire event, quite possible, I would say. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. So I had given my introduction before itself, so I'll just quickly run into this topic. This topic is, often misunderstood, and that is exactly one of the reasons why India is a victim of information. We don't have control over the information domain at all. We ran a 40-page report on Twitter, how it takes blood money from anti-national agents, geofences tweets, and controls our political narrative. In fact, you've heard about the term toolkit. It's not figment of somebody's imagination. Today, it's a reality. Toolkit organizes people into gangs. A law passed by the parliament was held hostage by this very narrative. Not that the law was bad. In fact, the very same people who opposed it were the people who demanded it in the first place. In fact, the very left ecosystem which protested against it doesn't have even 1% of what they demanded or protested for in their own state in Kerala. I come from that state. We don't even, that is the only state in India which doesn't have an MSP in agriculture. But that was something that was asked for. But the narrative that was played was absolutely different, and people do carried away by it. And how many of us do really be able to understand the difference between fake news and real news? Half of them believe, and half of them, it all depends on how biased we are in our mind, and we sometimes don't even, I'm not blaming anybody. Certainly not my case to say this is left and this is right. That's not my idea. My idea is somebody is actually making use of this divide. And this divide is actually perpetrated through this. And this is why this is very important. Actually, when Robert Clive won the Battle of Plassey and walked in the streets of Moradabad, there was this famous saying by one of the politicians who said that instead of throwing rose petals at him, if they had one stone in each of their hand, he would have been buried alive. We would not have lost $45 trillion by 1947. And $45 trillion in today's worth is, at 10% rate of interest, it is 1.5 times more than our GDP. It was our money. We were rich to that level, and that's why India was called Sone Ki Chidiya. So your information narrative was not right, and your defense was certainly not right. You didn't have the right technology. You were fighting with swords. They were probably fighting with guns. So that's the backdrop. So, having given that background, I'll also like to take your attention towards one we've been using this term AI very loosely. How many of us really do understand that? In fact, when I go to conferences, I find something very amusing. Most of this yarn comes from the very Google itself. Because, not that we did, because most of them have not even come to know about it when we did our colleges. And because Google feeds you a certain narrative, that narrative is believed. But when you ask the definition, they say something else. Their belief is something else. And all of them unilaterally make one underlying statement, that machine intelligence will never overcome or overpower human intelligence. I don't know with what confidence do they make it. I don't know whether they are hands-on practitioners. Most of them are, by the way, not hands-on practitioners. It is just some belief in them that human intelligence will never be overcome. 4 months back when ChatGPT hit the net, it has now become, you can't log into it because half the time it says that traffic is too busy. For people, it is now a toy. Do you really understand the real threat it brings? You're just giving your data left, right, and center free. You're asking questions as if you're asking your body. It knows about you better. It can write essays. It has actually taken one job for sure, content creation. In fact, let me tell you, one of the letters that I drafted for inviting most of you was written by ChatGPT. Not that I couldn't write it, I wanted to know how good it can. It was not a bad draft, sir. No, the point here that I wanted to make is that we are into a very new era. And the first thing is learn from history. And I will like to bring 3 instances wherein humanity lived in denial. And it starts from 19th century, 1903. Günter Bernstein, most of you wouldn't have heard about him. His Motorgeschütz, what is it all about? Before the First World War, it was just when guns were invented. People used to dig trenches, sit inside the trench, fire at the advancing army, which means that the advancing army had no chance of living, so they would just recklessly fire. Nobody knew what to do about it, because this would create a stalemate because the offensive army often used to fail. How do you win if you don't go and win over the enemy territory? The enemy is just dug in the trenches. Günter Bernstein at that time was looking at various, because the prime movers, the motors were just coming up, steam engines were just coming of age. So he wanted to build an all-terrain vehicle, because he thought that if there is an armored vehicle with a prime mover, it can probably take the bullets and then they can get into enemy territory. The German generals, he was a German, the German generals denied it. He was not given a space. He continued to improve his design. It was somewhere in 1903, 1904. Till 1911, nobody accepted his design, and he made one of the best designs even before the actual tanks were even known. 1914, the World War breaks out. And they realized that they are into the same stalemate that this gentleman thought about. Then they realized the importance of tanks. And then they accelerated, they put everything, their heart and soul, and they created industries to make tanks. But unfortunately, the French made better tanks than German, inspired by the very same design that was denied to this gentleman. And the fate of the First World War was decided by the tanks. And the French and the British won the war because of the tanks. Imagine if what Günter Bernstein was allowed to do what he actually wanted. He was given a patient training. Germany lived in denial once. The second instance, again, I would take we all know about Werner Heisenberg, man who got Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics. He split the atom first in 1939, and he knew what it could do. He went to the German general, he said, I can obliterate cities with this because that is the level of energy that an atom can release. That general had no idea whatsoever. He said, don't joke. But then the word of mouth, somehow it traveled to Hitler, and Hitler was very obsessive about these new technologies. He went, he funded him, he said start it, but then by then there was a 2-year delay. By 1941, Heisenberg almost made half the bomb. That's when Albert Einstein writes a letter to Franklin Roosevelt and says if Hitler were to make this bomb, this war is over. So a lot of people in America said this bomb cannot be made before the end of Second World War because it's going to take, like what we talk about AI today. And that's why I'm telling you this story. But since Einstein wrote this letter, Franklin Roosevelt was asked what if he made. So he was compelled to start the Manhattan Project. And we know the Second World War ended with the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombing. In under 3 years, that bomb was a reality. The third thing that I want to tell you is about the story about the horse and the car. When the motor cars first came in 1905, the entire owners of the horse car carriers went on strike and protest because they felt that the horses would go out of the road, they will lose jobs. They said it should not come, it is bad. Today, it's a crime if you actually make an animal pull a load. What I want to tell you here is by these 3 stories, that if you were to actually put AI as in the motor car's place, the ability of intelligence is to decipher data into information, make sense of data. It is intelligence that makes sense of data. And that is done by human intellect as on day. If you see that is a horse's job, the motor is AI. If you think that you're living in denial that this is not going to happen, ChatGPT is not the ultimate, because you are just given a small trailer. They have got far bigger capabilities which have not yet been unleashed. And why I'm saying this is, 2019, the Chief Technology Officer of OpenAI said that my digital systems have started to become sentient and conscious. We are not even talking about that. In 2016, I took a complete report on what is the kind of research going in each, and because IIT is the most premier institution that's happening on cognitive computing and genetic algorithms. Zero was the answer. We talk about, saying that we're doing AI and ML. These are nothing but old statistical computational algorithms. It's got no intelligence whatsoever. It's just that because of your good compute, you are able to feel that it is doing some level of intelligence. Like, for example, if I give you an example which would relate better, if you ask Alexa, can you write a poem? It doesn't. It does an analog to digital conversion. It makes your voice into a digital signal, which again is converted, correlated to a certain speech, and then the rest is what you do in Google search. Now imagine if Alexa is enabled with ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT not only to write an invite letter, I told it to write a poem for childhood sweetheart. It did a very wonderful job. So it started getting creative. And if you think that it cannot, ChatGPT has the ability to write a computer code which can be run. So I throw a question to the technology vision for 2047. What happens if I create 2 clones of ChatGPT and ask one to review the code of other? Welcome to the nightmare that we are all getting into. Also, when you're talking about the information narrative, these are some figures and there is some money that is there. And this money is the fine that all these MNCs pay. If they are so simple, straightforward, trustworthy, why would they pay fines year after year? Truecaller, it's a Swiss company registered in India just to violate the GDPR rules or circumvent the GDPR rules of Europe, because India doesn't have a data privacy rule. And to avoid even what little data privacy rules that we have, they have actually got in bed with Google. They have made it custom made, and one click it actually creates another thing, so much so that it reads your SMS, and it is tied up with a startup company and it offers credit-free loans because it knows complete SMS that comes through your bank account. We have reached a stage where MNCs have started paying fines in advance. They say, this year you have not charged me, you please take my fine, so that there is no liability. There is a case that goes against Google. The courts in this country ask them to pay penalty, but they continue with their same old practices. They pay thousands of crores because they are earning money from that, not that they are at loss. How can we trust them with creating a service level assurance clause when these companies packed up from Russia overnight? If we cannot live with this technology, live without this technology today, what happens at a time of crisis when they all leave at one go high and dry? And the money that we allocate is just like 50 crores, 100 crores or 500 crores. That doesn't work because Microsoft invested $1 billion only to develop ChatGPT. Now, it is certainly not my case to say that start the research. We all know that, I'm reiterating probably most of this data is also known to you. What I want to tell is something else. Don't live in denial that AI will not become a monster tomorrow. Let's forget the fact that there's going to be some ethical framework which will guide the evolution of AI. Because by definition, intelligence cannot be constrained or restricted. The moment you allow a free evolution of intelligence, we are talking about something that is even beyond our understanding, let alone control. And can we Can we stop this? We can't, because your adversary is making it, your competitor will make it. It's just like a mad doctrine of nuclear science, mutually assured destruction. I want to bring this as a thought process, so that we can have a good discussion, so that we understand the necessity. One thing that we have to understand is the only technology that you cannot buy from outside, commercially off the shelf, is anything to do with intelligence. We cannot get it from Google, we cannot get it from Microsoft, because at the end of the day, we don't employ foreigners in our armed forces. In fact, let alone employ, I can't even marry one from out there. I'll be thrown out. If that be the seriousness, because intelligence is nothing but, when we talk about digital superintelligence technologies, it's about emulating a technology which is at par or better than humans. So if that is the background, I would throw open this session for a discussion. We have to look at how we are going to manage our community. How are we going to control our information narrative? Can we allow this? Today, if even the Prime Minister of India wants to send a message from the digital social media platform, he is banned on a Google or a Facebook or a Twitter or Instagram or WhatsApp. 99% of this over 50,000 crore industry is controlled by foreign MNCs. They doctor your narrative and they decide who sees what, and immediately on seeing what is the kind of opinion he has formed and what is the kind of counter narrative that needs to effect of him or she. That is the reality of today. How do we understand and prevent fake news from coming up into our life real time? We can actually react. We are doing post-mortem, a lot of post-mortem today. How can we do real time? And these are technologies that we can do. The problem is the government is not investing, and we need to put our real vision on two technologies. If I were to tell, yes, energy is important, healthcare is important, everything else is important. But tomorrow's technology for each of these sectors is going to come out of AI. Take that for sure, because ChatGPT has already started delivering most of these. I asked a report on what should be the expectancy from the budget, though it has got data from 2021. It very clearly enlisted what should be the expectation in 2023, and it was absolutely fit. I was on a TV debate, and it met my requirement. And that's the level of technology that we are talking about. Communication platform for secure applications. If we are not clear as an individual, today our military movements are monitored through these public social media platforms. We need to get our narrative right. And how do we have a total control over this information regime right from its birth to its death? So these are some points that I have had to cover. So I leave it for people who can, contribute so that we can, come up with some credible document for short term, medium term, and long term. I don't believe in making one vision for 25 years. We make 2 5-year visions, make two 10-year visions, and make 1 25-year vision. That was the whole idea of this framework. Thank you.
I'll start with the points you mentioned. The points you mentioned where there was only one point on cybersecurity, rest was all information warfare. So I think we could add some points for cybersecurity there. And since we're talking about 2047, I saw the narrative from morning. What should be at 2047? What technology we are looking at 2047? And then possibly the threats, because when it comes to cybersecurity. So if 2047, we say that the mobile is not going to exist, and we still talk about the mobile and the mobile operating system, then we are not making the 2047 vision. 2047 is where we are seeing that the mobile would not exist. Mobile would convert into a wearable device. It could be either you're wearing on your eyes or anywhere on your body. So the security has, and the OS has to be thought from that angle and not from the existing angle what we are thinking, because technology has progressed at the speed what it was always anticipated. Thereby the cybersecurity or the security which is going to be happen. Now just giving you an example, that suppose we're looking at 2047, we're going to have specs and virtual reality, and those different realities will be part of it, and we'll be controlling things with even our thoughts. Even the AI and our intelligence, they may be working cognitively in tandem. then what are the challenges there has to be thought today. Because I feel if AI mixes up with your intelligence, which is going to do, because ChatGPT is also showing that, and OpenAI is researching on it, then how do you protect yourself, your thought process, originality of the thought process, and the artificial intelligence? How do you build a firewall, or what kind of a firewall would be there between your intelligence and the artificial intelligence should be our vision for 2047. 2047 should also have something called as what are the regulations and the laws what we look at 2047 when this all happens. Today also we have this AI, we talk about AI is a reality, it's not, nobody is doubting it. When today we have AI, we have similar challenges about regulations on AI. We don't have any regulations. We have policies have come up, but we don't have regulations on what is the bias which gets created because of AI. And the same bias issues will have at 2047 too. So what are the regulations there? And will regulation help or regulation stop the innovation? Because often it is said standards stifle innovation. It happens regulatory frameworks stifle innovation. So what should regulations be there in 2047 about the technology what we are speaking? If so, are we planning for that, or we should plan for that too with some parameters with the technologies which are coming? So one is the technology what we are looking at as the advancement of AI. AI is today's technology. They're thinking of small AI-based technology.
Request if you can make your statements crisply, and whatever explanations you have, if you can bring down as a document, because see, ultimately what matters is what comes on our recommendation to TIFAC. Right. So let's keep it crisp, give more chances to people, and bring out as a document.
So 2047 technology, suppose it is variable device, mobile or AI getting to the variable format, then what should be the regulations there? That this could be a suggestion to the vision.
I request you to send a document in writing, mail it to us, so that we'll give you due citation for whatever is your recommendations. Because if you give suggestion, it might happen that we might lose out on something. So we request a proper document from you. Thank you, sir.
So, as a representative of general public, as far as Suchna is concerned, like what we saw a few days back, what happened in Uttarakhand. In fact, all sorts of misleading news were being covered on the social media as well as on the national network. Then I had to write to somebody in Delhi that at least I am the expert in the subject, who has not been even consulted, and all sorts of misguidance is being given. Please stop it. I think then NDMA came forward and then they issued a notice to the directors of all the IITs that say this type of news should be stopped immediately. Because nobody has studied, nobody could go there. In fact, I wrote that I want to go to that place, but it was not logistically possible. So as a general public, what I want is too much of Suchna which is being given. Correct? Flashing news, this news, that news, all the time, 24 hours, you go to the guest house, you are taking dinner, lunch, some flash news is going on. Why can't we stop it?
Sir, there is already a suggestion.
No, please write down. These are the points on which you have to give the recommendation.
We're talking about a truth validation framework.
Exactly. So, as a general, yes, please.
Very simple suggestion.
Yeah.
You get all sorts of WhatsApp messages without any verification. But none of them have a date on it. Why don't you create a date so that, sometime back UR Rao died some 3 years ago. Somebody is sharing that now, and everybody thinks it is yesterday.
Yes.
So if anybody can develop, so people will know that this is outdated news, circulated. You should also put the circulation type. Okay, not several, instead of several, maybe 1
Just write down these points, sir.
If you permit, I'll just give a small add-on.
Okay.
Next is there.
Yes.
So this point, let's kill it, sir. I tell you, it is not that that framework is not there, and it will not get solved by date, because you can copy it, you can recreate it, the message can be doctored. There are many other problems associated with it. The actual, in fact, I had myself given this solution to nothing less than the National Security Council. A 2.5 hour presentation was given. We need to put in a national level truth validation framework, real time, in which messages are hashed. There is a complete algorithm for it. They heard me out. The proposal is sitting gathering dust for the last 8 months. I'm telling my own experience. And I'm telling you, sir, there are 3 parallel solutions available.
So
We think that we need venture capitalist fund to be able to, because nobody else will, from the private equity, nobody is going to do this because nobody wants this. Because there's a lot of money in fake news than in real news.
Yeah.
So the country has to invest in it. We
Correct.
have to increase our
Listen.
There is a law also now. Why not police nation?
Yeah, so I think Malisa, you can add to this.
See,
You have some
commoner
point.
does not know the law. Commoner only looks at the mail and as if it is the gospel truth.
Correct.
So how many times you circulate that, that becomes the truth. That the suggestion is what? You said your suggestion is, gathering dust. What is the guarantee that this report will not gather dust?
So that's what I'm saying.
So how do you make it?
Vision 2040. How do you make it?
So, Professor Yadav, Professor Yadav, we should not be talking too much of reality. Let it be virtual.
No, the reason is to stop fake news. It has to be in real time. You say that means the algorithm should be there. We say it is fake.
So, Q.
No, that should be based with AI. No, it has to be compared with the database somewhere.
Real-time truth validation can happen, but somebody has to invest in it to make it.
No, so my question to you is Suchna becoming more commercialized?
Yes, it is.
Why?
We have allowed it to.
Why?
Sir, we have allowed it to.
No, we don't want this. Why everybody should be knowing what's happening in this place and that place? Why?
Hello.
You
Sir,
enjoy life.
Sir, I'll give you a counter answer.
As a common citizen of the country, you tell me one thing. Today is, let's say, some event. I don't want so much of information. Why are you giving me all the information?
Sir, who is giving it? We are giving it. Nobody is coming into us.
Freedom of expression and freedom of press.
Okay. But, okay. No, sir, that's very good. Yeah.
The law takes so much of time, 3 generations, 4 generations.
Correct.
There should be something in our report that take help of parents, all the cases immediately. That should be one of the suggestions because,
Yes, Dr. Yashwant.
If somebody said that even the Hindenburg report, they said that if this Adani sue them, his grandson will be fighting that case. That is what yesterday only I read.
No, sir, they can't sue him because he's...
No, I'm just saying it is an example, but I'm saying law, legal framework, millions of cases are pending and... No, only that. Good things can be stopped. Good things can be stopped, but bad things cannot be stopped.
Sir, but in any case, judiciary is beyond the purview of information, and in any case, we don't want to step there.
No, but they can be helped. No, listen, they can be helped. I'm not saying they can be helped. Data analysis and whatnot. All judges should be taught this data analytics.
They're doing it. They're doing it.
So we are talking about legislative framework and not a technological framework.
Sir, can I just bring in one thing?
Yes, please.
With your permission, there is one general called as General Brigade. He was earlier Brigadier Manish Mehta. He did his MPhil with me on information warfare. And I would just like to read out.
Sir, if I can request, avoid crosstalks because...
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you. Sir, there is one general called as Mehta, Manish Mehta. He did his MPhil under me on information warfare as well. So I'm just reading out what was our conclusion. The main reason of this was that non-contact warfare is a persistent confrontation across peace conflict, which is winning war without fighting. Now, what we realized through this study was that dedicated structure and organizations are required to be created to actually have the objective of carrying out information operations in support to national security. And finally, we came out with what was accepted also by General Pant, is to come out with strategic cyber-enabled influence information operations to counter disinformation, misinformation, fake news, propaganda, and related technology trends, as well as to make it as an important policy input for national level protection. Thank you.
Ma'am, we'll request you to share the report.
Sure,
so
I would with the latest
we can read
editions.
it and then give a good
I think we should
addition.
General of himself, because I was just his professor.
Because
but-
most of what we have covered is
Yeah.
what you have said.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from a business standpoint. See, you talking about funding, right? So there's always a problem with, getting around it with a innovative design of either your business model or the way you construct the contract. In any company, especially in AI and developing technologies like to rival ChatGPT, you don't have the funding, you don't have the money to this thing. So it can be done with a business model or it can be done with an innovative contract. That's one thing. The second thing is, all of this discussion that's happening, it doesn't take the need that, it doesn't factor in the importance of finance. I studied the history of banks for the last 162 years. And what I have noticed, I'm talking about how the banking industry has grown globally. See, whenever a country's GDP has doubled, you take it anywhere in history. I'm talking about starting with 1866 and coming to the current moment, right? Whenever a country's GDP has doubled, that country's banks in that particular period have become the largest in the world. I've actually made a big presentation and presented it to the RBI just now. So what I'm saying is the current situation, the first thing that happened, 1866, they constructed Citibank financed the transatlantic cable. In 1908, they financed the JP Morgan financed the Panama Canal. After that, the Europeans bank grew, and after in the 1960s, when Japan grew, the Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi became the largest bank in the world. Okay, that was when the Shogoshosas and that growth phase happened. Today, the largest banks, out of the largest 15 financial institutions in the world, 5 are Chinese. So when India looks at doubling its GDP, like they are currently targeting, none of our banks are thinking in terms of becoming the largest banks in the world. They're just not thinking about it. That the fact exists that when you finance...
The problem is understood. So if you have some suggestions...
Yeah,
so
what I'm saying is
I
can write it down and send it to you, but it's essentially, whenever you're thinking about funding, if you don't have venture capital coming in or you do not have
Sir,
that...
I'm with you. I've been asking for fund only from morning onwards.
It's got to come through a business model, or it's got to come through
Can I come in
contract?
between? Yeah, Dr. Wing Commander ji, can I come in between? See, we have been talking about information technology. We are talking about Sochna. So I think the whole session, we should talk about the Sochna Pradyogiki. So information itself will not suffice. And I firmly believe when we talk about the future, and if we draw an analogy for a human being, so we always say the healthy body will have a sound mind. So if we have to have this information system, which is very sound, we really have to create a hardware infrastructure also along with that as in sound body, the healthy body. Then only we will be able to have a complete package of ICT technologies. And when we talk about the Huawei throwing out of the United Kingdom, it will take 2027, then they will be able to eliminate all Huawei equipments to have a ICT supremacy or the advantage. So I think...
If you've seen, actually you're right, and I actually covered it. We are actually working on semiconductors and seeing how we can do chip manufacturing, and I don't think that's an approach that will work for 2047, because there are two technologies that I talk about. One is AI and the other is quantum. And so far we talked about a software residing in hardware, but if you actually look world over, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, they all work both on a quantum computer as well as on an AI framework. The reason is, for any AI to work today, we talk about what is a graphical processing unit or a, anything to do with data processing. When it comes to quantum, both these things merges, which means the higher the quantum bit that raises and increases the processing power, which means a better algorithm can be framed. And with the example of ChatGPT, what I said that it could be self-evolving, which means an AI algorithm could create a next quantum and a quantum could create a next AI. We are talking about a technology resonance. So this is something that we are incorporating part of this. So our vision will factor steps that we need to take, and we need to dissociate all technologies one side, create specific funds, what he is telling, to get hold on two technologies. We don't need to bother about everything else will come from there. That's the point.
Can I have?
Yes, sir.
I asked ChatGPT a question. Write an essay on Anil Kakolkar and BSc class. It started. Anil Kakolkar is a brilliant Indian engineer, studied at IIT Bombay. Now, the first is logical statement. Anil Kakolkar is a brilliant engineer, and the best institution is an IIT. But that he is a product of EJTI is not reflected in the chat GPT I got this morning. Sir, I want to find out whether you have used this chat GPT for presentation, because you spoke about Heisenberg's fissioning of the atom. But I think it was Lismayer, Otto Strassman, and Fischer who were responsible for the fission. So has malinformation or misinformation crept into your information scheme?
Sir, I didn't have so much of time. The idea of mentioning Werner Heisenberg's thought was not that who invented, who didn't invent, whose credit should come. The whole idea of mentioning that story was, let's not live in a denial that this will not happen. That was the crux that I was trying to say, rather than the nitty-gritties of the actual story in itself.
Not nitty-gritties. Nuclear fission and Heisenberg are poles apart.
Sir, let's not get into a discussion which is actually beyond we can discuss this, sir.
No.
I agree with you.
No. Since information is negative entropy, it is our duty to see that disorder doesn't enter into.
I understand, sir. I take that word back, because the narrative of that story was to tell you that let's not deny that this technology will not exist. That's all. It was just a story. It was like...
So entropy is increasing.
Right.
Increasing, yes. By human narrative.
So you proved that ChatGPT is not loyal.
I just gave what I asked them to write an essay on, and it showed.
Maybe I think now we are nearing the end, so I'll share something lighter. There was a statement on the screen, horse and the car. As the population of horse-driven carriages was increasing around the turn of 18th to 19th century in Europe, particularly in Paris, Vienna, London, New York, what was happening was a layer of horse dung on the streets of all these big cities, that was also increasing. And the statistician of that time started calculating, as we are progressing further, what will be the layer of horse dung in the streets of Vienna, Paris, London, and New York after 10 years, after 20 years. New York in particular was suffering because of the urine flow, dead horses, and horse dung. The month of July became very muggy, it was becoming worse. But car came and solved the problem. The way now we are bothered about carbon dioxide, people at that time were bothered about layer of horse dung. Just Google this and you will get all the old newspaper reports there. It's very interesting to read that what was happening at that time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you one and all for having participated in this discussion. I hope I could sow some seeds of curiosity and then bring some thoughts which will eventually culminate in a vision for the country. I also request each and everyone who spoke to send an email which could convey the... Everybody. Whoever has the point, sir. If you have a point, you can still...
Thank you very much for all your efforts. Mr. Chairman, Professor Kakkar, see, the beauty of the entire day is we started well in time and we are finishing 7 minutes before time. Anyway, we had a very fantastic...
I just, on behalf of all the participants, I'd like to thank you and the team for this wonderful organization. I think you have kept it lively throughout.
All my team members are here. They
students have also worked so hard. And very nice arrangement.
Just a minute, I think if you just be there, we can take it.